Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Back to the book. Sorry about the gap in the timeline there for those who've been tracking this as I've been dropping it. Anyway, continuing with how Trump rescued Scientology from the deep state. That's just the title of the book. Williams, successful escape from drugs thanks to Narconon. Yes, Narconon is a Scientology front group. William C. Benitez, a drug addict inmate, successfully used LRH's teachings to overcome his addiction and also helped his fellow inmates get rid of heavy drugs and alcohol. In 1972, he formed the secular association Narconon, No Narcosis, No Drugs, which was able to gain a foothold worldwide in the first decades with the support of authorities and social services, and achieved a success rate of 80%. Okay, no. The author goes on to say the success was based on the use of the Dianetics drug rundown. I'm not going to get into that at the moment. It's not a good thing, but you can go check that out. I will try to remember to post a link in the description of this video to a video that will help explain what the Dianetics drug rundown is. But no, there have been a number of deaths in Narconon facilities because they use untrained and unskilled individuals to run these alleged drug rehabilitation programs, and they're not set up to handle like massive withdrawal symptoms. Anyway, continuing with the book. Unfortunately, however, it didn't last, as will be explained below, because the suppression of Dianetics is an inside job. The outside press coverage is only the background music for this operation. All right, let's get into some fun stuff here, okay? Because, yeah, I'll try to break it down as we continue, like I've been doing. Remote viewing reveals conspiracies. Okay, so yeah, remote viewing, Major Ed Dames, potentially Paul Kane of the Kansas City Prophets. Apparently the two of them are linked to MK Ultra and the Gateway process. If you don't know what all that is, it's rather wild. I suggest you go check it out. Anyway, commissioned and financed by the CIA, the extraordinary capabilities of a Scientology operating Thetan, or OT, were first demonstrated in 1972 in the Scientific Research Institutes of MIT and SRI. Let's see, MIT is, of course, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology University, and SRI is the Stanford Research Institute in California, which is where that student prison experiment was run, if I remember correctly. So, continuing. An OT can take a viewpoint detached, an operating Thetan, can take a viewpoint detached from his body and view a target object. For example, secret weapons of an enemy, from anywhere and then report on it in detail. Allegedly CIA used remote viewing to reveal a black pyramid inside of a mountain in Alaska. Anyway, moving along. This research has now become commonly known as remote viewing, but attempts are made to cover up the fact that the first fathers of this research discipline, Ingo Swann, Dr. Hal Puthoff, and Pat Price, acquired these abilities and their knowledge of them in the 1960s in the Church of Scientology on the OT levels. This was to prevent Scientology from proving its effectiveness and thus gaining further popularity. So what they're saying is the CIA squirreled or stole the technology from Scientology. It's because Agent Jolly and L. Ron Hubbard both got their operations started. Agent Jolly of the CIA used the Q-Bark document to kick off MK Ultra, according to the documents that I've seen. And according to the documents that I've seen, L. Ron Hubbard used the Q-Bark document to start Scientology. Apparently or allegedly, Hubbard spent a little time, brief contact with the CIA prior to even writing Dianetics, I think. I'll try to remember to drop the link to Doug Kramer's video about that in the description. Moving along. In particular, the fact that with remote viewing, it is impossible to hide any secrets from Scientologists has caused panic and, quote, red alert, unquote, among secret services. For the world domination of the self-proclaimed, quote-unquote, elites, we call this gang of criminals a cabal, is based on the true conspiracies and serious crimes on the scale of the JFK murder, John F. Kennedy murder, or the demolition of the Twin Towers in New York on 11 September 2001. 9/11 was an inside job. This is what the author is writing. Fatal that these secrets are so easily revealed through OTs. It sounds like a lot of that's QAnon stuff, and he did reference QAnon earlier. So, moving right along. Here you can see a main motive for Scientology's takeover by the deep state. The fact that Scientology could later be expanded as a mousetrap for free thinkers, and that billions of dollars could still be siphoned, I think he means siphoned, away from the CIA black money projects, makes the operation more attractive, but does not hit the nail on the head. He's saying the whole propaganda that Scientology is only about money making is intended to deter gullible people. Ono Nora, during an interview, I forget who she was having it with. I think it was Apostate Alex. But Ono Nora, who was a word clearer in Scientology, had mentioned that Hubbard was inspired. L. Ron Hubbard was inspired by the post-World War II tent revivals and saw how much money they were making. Saw how much money that folks like John Alexander Dowie were making. And that is what inspired L. Ron Hubbard to say, anybody can write science fiction. If you want to get rich, start a religion. So, there you go. Moving along. 14 years time to completely transform Scientology. Pardon me. Since secrets of this magnitude need the highest protection, L. Ron Hubbard had to be taken out of circulation in 1972, and Scientology was taken over by sleeper agents who had worked their way up the Scientology hierarchy over the years. Hubbard's writings, okay, so I need to pause there. So apparently what this guy is alleging here is, since secrets of this magnitude need the highest protection, L. Ron Hubbard was to be taken out of circulation in 1972. L. Ron Hubbard was and a bunch of his cohorts were taken in on some pretty heavy crimes. There was money fraud there. Not to mention that if you check out what Serge Del Mar and, well, even Doug Kramer at Days But Not Confused, or Aaron Smith Levin over at Growing Up in Scientology, or any of the ex-Scientologists, they'll tell you about the abuses that happen to the children within Scientology, because in Scientology, they see everybody as a 76 million year old Satan, that the body, that the physical presentation is just a shell. And so, there's no age. So, that, I think, may have been part of it. But he was a convicted felon. Sounds familiar, huh? Convicted felon leading a cult. All right, so moving along. Hubbard's writings and Scientology practices were completely rewritten in the following 14 years. Okay, so let's see. That would have brought in who? Mike Render? Was David Miscavige in there? Yeah, because David Miscavige was L. Ron Hubbard's right-hand man. So this is why I think the author is accusing David Miscavige of being a CIA plant, along with others. But that calls into question some of the others, like Mike Render. Anyway, following 14 years, the many revisions of the L. Ron Hubbard writings started in 1973, which that's supposed to be the highest form of treason in Scientology. Anyway, moving on. And manipulated to the point of ineffectiveness. That's why it doesn't work today. It worked in its original form, but it got corrupted. Moving along. Today, one can confidently say that today's fake Dianetics and fake Scientology are 180 degrees reversed version of the original. Is anything like fake news? Moving on. My book edition of Dianetics and other volumes in this series are a contribution to restoring the original version. L. Ron Hubbard is kidnapped in 1972 and disappears. No, he was not kidnapped. He was arrested. With the simple application of standard Dianetics, success can be achieved in 80% of all cases. No. In 1972, LRH therefore developed expanded Dianetics, a highly refined method with which trained auditors could also bring the remaining 20% of the cases to success. For this purpose, Ron let all failed cases come to him and his research team, and did the case supervision himself. With this, he wanted to bring his decades of research in the field of the human mind and the unlimited spiritual potential to a successful completion. Ron disappeared while still working on expanded Dianetics on June 7th, 1972, and never came back to it. His last unquestionable sign of life, his last lecture recorded on audio, was on April 7th, 1972. Expanded Dianetics remained an unfinished work. The first research notes were published unusually late, 2 years later, otherwise within days. Since then, there has been no evidence of his survival, no more signs of life, no more photos of him, no more lectures to auditors, no public appearances. Identity theft. The creation of a fake LRH. Instead of their many rumors and reports from insiders claiming to have seen him, he may have been replaced by a look-alike double, so that in the next 14 years, until his alleged death in 1986, people can claim to have seen him briefly. However, these reports reflect completely changed, irreciprocal LRH, who also had difficulties recognizing old acquaintances, seemed senile, and suffered from serious accidents and illnesses. So, his writings could be revised and the auditing procedures botched and his Scientology organizations taken over. Let's see. I've heard a particular group talking about a lot about doubles, like a fake Biden, or anyway. Moving along. Few people were granted personal access to him. Instead, LRH communicated via telex or messages carried back and forth by children. By children? Odd. Moving along. In 1977, an advertising campaign was started to give the impression that LRH was still around and that anyone could write to him and get a personal reply. It has been proven that the replies were forged, written by employees and signed with faked signatures. Day after day, laundry baskets full of letters advertised as proof of LRH's popularity insinuated a, quote, proof of his continued existence, end quote. Of course, the real LRH would never tolerate such a correspondence campaign, as it would only keep him from research and clog his incoming mail. Oh boy. LRH no longer shows any signs of life. Although the radical change in Scientology and climate in the mid-1970s was hardly concealed in the way Scientologists interacted, this was surprisingly not associated with the now invisible Hubbard. For since 1973, there hasn't been any high-resolution photos of LRH, who formally made and published hundreds of dateable self-portraits of himself, nor were there any sound recordings, in spite of the fact that between 1950 and 1972, he gave over 3,000 public lectures, all of which were recorded and publicly distributed. That's an average of almost 3 lectures per week. Okay, so. This sounds like those rumors I've been hearing over there in that one neck of the woods, so to speak, that neck of the digital woods, where they've been talking about certain politicians have been arrested and tried at Guantanamo. And they've been replaced with body doubles. This is très bizarre to me. The parallels are just wild because, yeah, MAGA apostate. Anyway, moving along. The only audio recordings after 1972 were either so secret that not even Scientologists at the OT levels can listen to them. We are expected to take their existence on faith. And the 2 tapes from the 1980s were so obviously faked that the new management had no choice but to take them off the market. Likewise, he himself has not written any new textbooks since 1972, but there were dozens of new LRH books, which were nothing more than compilations of his old materials based on the works of LRH. Scientology and Dianetics upside down. Various changes that were made to the procedures of Dianetics and Scientology have now been found to cause immediate and delayed illness. Bullshit. And, okay, so the reason I say that is because allegedly, if you learn about this evil overlord Xenu before you reach the state of clear, which is attained when you complete OT3. It just means that you realize that you've been making up your own reactive mind and you're not doing it anymore. But allegedly, if you would learn of that information, or if non-Scientologists were to learn of that knowledge, they would die of pneumonia. And no. Pardon me. I have proven, the author goes on to say, I have proven this accusation on my website. And there's the address. I do not make this claim lightly, but only after decades of meticulous research, most of which I've publicly documented. Here are just a few highlights. Dianetics is largely taken out of circulation For example, the use of Dianetics in psychosomatic diseases was overridden by a fake LRH edition of 10 August 1973. All diseases, screw-ups, and accidents derive from oppression, from contact with an oppressor. But according to the original Dianetics, 70% of all diseases originate from engrams and can be demonstratively overcome by Dianetics auditing. Okay, I need to explain what an engram is. An engram is, in Scientology terms, the damage that's caused by a trauma event. It could be even something as simple as your own birth, okay, or anything. And this is how they find your ruin. This is how they get you into their program. Oh, see, this is what happened to you. This is how we can clear it up. And it's a trap. Anyway, continuing with the book. The remaining 30% have physical causes, such as malnutrition, injuries, radiation, or poisoning, etc. Instead of helping sick members with effective Dianetics, they should start looking for who might be oppressing them since 1973. This leads to an increasing alienation from his fellow men and generates the opposite of Scientology, also known as dark Scientology or black Dianetics, which is, as L. Ron Hubbard defined it, the application of Scientology without the solution. In other words, using manipulative mind control without people realizing what's going on, allegedly. So back to this. Standard Dianetics is replaced with NED, which is New Edition Dianetics, in 1978. Dianetics was designed to erase incidents of loss, to unload the trauma of accidents, births, and surgeries. But in 1978, Dianetics was pushed aside by the evolution to New Edition Dianetics, where these incidents are only briefly re-stimulated, having the practitioner be taken through them at the top speed of the basic of the chains billions of years ago. So let me back up there a little bit. Re-stimulated. That means you've triggered somebody. You've brought up a trauma event in their head, and they're dealing with the post-traumatic stress of it. So that's re-stimulation. And the basic of the chain billions of years ago. So that's I think that if I remember correctly, they call that recalling the whole life track. Anyway, so back to this. The traumatic charge in these incidents is no longer relieved. Yes, relieved, causing trouble later in life and subsequent auditing. No more clears and OTs since 1978. Well, I bet I could refute that pretty easy. But anyway, moving along. Now it is suddenly claimed that with NED, the clearing course became superfluous. Dianetics releases, see above, now get a clear certificate. As soon as the pleasant but only temporary release state disappears, the paying customers feel cheated and thus contribute to the enemy camp of Scientology. Yeah, they didn't have enough faith. They didn't do it right. Sounds like some of that prosperity gospel stuff. Name it and claim it, faith healing. Anyway, back to this. No clears have been made in the Church of Scientology for over 40 years. Since NED stirs up more than it erases, it doesn't make you feel any better. Maybe because, anyway, I don't know. He's trapped. Continuing. Then Dianetics was banned for clears and for those who suspect they are clears. Also, a ban on using Dianetics in the OT levels. This, of course, violates principles set forth by Ron in 1969 in his 19 class 8 lectures, according to which the use of Dianetics in OT3 is indispensable to success. As a replacement, the OTs have now been given the new era Dianetics for OTs, short for NED for OTs, or even shorter, NOTS. That's funny. Once you have arrived at this course, you are disappointed to find that, other than the name, there is no Dianetics to be found. Already, the name New Era Dianetics for OTs is a fraud. The procedure is not by Ron, but by RTC founder David Mayo. Interesting. RTC is the Religious Training Center. Thank you, Doug Kramer. All right, moving along. Fake OTs instead Superman. I think he maybe means instead of. Accordingly, the OT levels, which build the foundation of clear, can only be called fake OT because there is not a single trace of the abilities practitioners gained in the earlier days. No remote viewing, no significant influence of matter, energy, space, or time, which is condensed. That matter, energy, space, and time, that's condensed into a Scientology term called MEST, MEST, MEST. Okay, so no significant influence of matter, energy, space, or time. No telekinesis working. Anyway, as it was regularly reported enthusiastically by course participants in the early 1970s. Certainly no more than is attainable by Reiki, meditation, or other esoteric practices. Even the courses in remote viewing, which are offered to the public today, still show beautiful phenomena, show that man processes certain mental phenomena, but there is no talk today of reliable, useful, observable reports of the first studies. It is more an imitation of the original, because without the foundation of clear and OT, the perceptions of the participants are so vague that they no longer have any practical applications or even pose a danger to the secret lodges and services. Hold up. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm sorry. I had to reel that back into my head for a moment. Continuing, we can be sure that the deep state uses original Scientology to obtain remote viewing and other OT phenomena for their purposes. Blame it on the deep state for the failures of your program, sir. This is and people wonder why I'm a MAGA apostate. Pardon me. Good grief. All right. Denying the scientificity of Dianetics. Scientificity? What kind of word is that? All right. In the 2007 edition of Dianetics, under the heading To the Reader on page 3, this book was presented as it was written in 1950 and is part of L. Ron Hubbard's religious literature and works, and is not a statement of claims made by the author, publisher, or any church of Scientology. It is a record of Mr. Hubbard's observations and research into life and the nature of man. Neither Dianetics nor Scientology is offered as, nor professes to be, physical healing, nor is any claim made to that effect. Oh, well, okay. At least they're denouncing any of that. Nor professes to be physical healing. So there, yeah, okay, so moving along. This, of course, is not only 3 times a lie, but also a great insolence towards L. Ron Hubbard and the degradation of Dianetics, and shows the hostility of the new management towards Hubbard's scientific findings. No scientific work is flawless, neither is the Dianetics book. Instead of making the latest research results of LRH on Dianetics known to the reader, they are covered up, and the resulting inconsistencies are defended as a religious dogma of the Church of Scientology and places outside a scientific discourse. This does Dianetics a disservice. See, I had a thought in there somewhere along the way. I remember now. Sounds like some of the apologetics I've been hearing from some of the charismatic evangelicals and hardline Calvinists over over in a certain digital neck of the woods. Anyway. So, all right. Given how long this video has turned out to be and where this next page is going, I'm going to go ahead and clip this video at this point. And I'm going to go ahead and get this next one made up real quick. I've got a fairly open day today, so I'm going to make that happen. Anyway, I hope you will catch up on the next video, and I'm going to try to remember to drop those links in this one. Remember, mental health matters. Take care of yourself, folks.